I started as a comedy writer in this business, so no exercise at all, and nobody. I play a dad, and I have this past, but because of a break-in, I re-engage with violence in my life. I knew that this was something that would be really challenging for me personally.
Bob took the challenge wholeheartedly.
What are you still doing here, old man?
I'm gonna fuck you up. I knew that I had to go to a whole nother level if I wanted to actually do the fighting and not get hurt.
He knew that if he wants to play this character, he has to pay the price.
To me, the fun of doing this is to learn that new set of skills.
There's this thing I gotta do.
Then you best go do it.
We started in November 2017. He would learn how to punch, he would learn how to kick, throw, and he would not quit.
I might have overcorrected.
I wanted to commit completely and go all the way into utterly unapologetic rage.
Who are you?
Me? I'm nobody.
I had a couple break-ins in my house, and it left me with a feeling of a lot of thoughts about violence, about guns, about frustration, about protecting your family, lingering feelings that you're left with. And I thought it'd be some kind of spark to make an action movie and a bit of fantasy role playing. Because in real life, you know, you should do what I did, which is keep the damage and the violence to a minimum and get the heck out of the way. But the truth is, you know, afterwards you're left with a feeling of, I wonder what I could have done if I had to, and I kind of wish I'd had to. This character, he's a bit of an unhinged guy. I mean, he is almost as far as you could say an anti-hero. He is a difficult guy. He's been acting as a dad and a good citizen, but he's been swallowing a lot of frustration for the length of this time where he's hiding out. It's a persona that he's taken on willingly. He wants to be a dad. He wants to have a family. He wants to be a part of society. There's a sense, the story that is told a little over halfway through the movie where he talks about having been a violent person, giving somebody a chance to go back to the life of a good citizen, and watching that person do that successfully and thinking, wow, if he can do it, maybe I could too. You know, there's a feeling I have that a person who's broken through to a place of violence in the world and sees the world that way, maybe somebody who served in the armed forces, or in this case, my character, you could say, did special ops work, that person might feel distanced from a regular person who never did that and doesn't have that as part of their life and wouldn't allow it in, violence and pushing and hitting and shooting and violent reaction. And so I had this sense that this guy would have the feelings that I had times 10. And so he's really unhinged. Chris Lloyd, I mean, we needed somebody to play my dad, and somebody who had a wild hair in them, a feeling of like, that guy's crazy, he could do crazy. There's a number of older actors who you could imagine we thought of, but oh my God, nobody like Chris Lloyd fills that bill. Nobody brings that sense of chaos and mayhem that might break out as well as a twinkle in his eye, like a real delight in craziness happening around him. Ilya Naishuller is the director of Nobody, and he's from Russia, and he made a movie about 3 years ago called Hardcore Henry that he made for nothing. And Ilya had told his agent, I would like to make, I'm going to try to quote him right, I would like to make an action movie with an actor who does drama who used to be a comedian. And so I guess I was tailor-made for his dream. And then we had this great script from Derek, and we were thrilled to have Ilya, who's a funny, interesting guy, and he just made it sing. To me, the fun of doing this and the challenge of it is to learn that new set of skills. So I also knew I had to get right into it. So thankfully we had Kelly McCormick interested and on board as a producer, and she and David Leitch are connected to a group of stunt people here called 8711, the best stunt people in the world as far as I'm concerned. And they had one of those people, Daniel Bernhardt, who's I think maybe the best stunt actor in the business, and you might know him from Atomic Blonde. There's a huge fight he does with Charlize Theron. It's really another level. And Daniel's the best. And he's also an actor, so he was able to really relate to me and my journey into doing stunts. And we trained 3 times a week. I had to drive down to the airport, which is where their facility is, and train for 2 hours, 2.5 hours. And I did that for 2 years before we made this movie. I'm excited for you to go on a crazy adventure and get swept up in the rage and violence and excitement and explosions and revenge of a regular guy who gets to act out this fantastic, very unrealistic action story.
Well, first of all, I'm a real big fan of Bob's work, and he's just always had this very special presence on screen, and I like the idea of this being a film that really uses a lot of genre ideas, and of course lots and lots of action, but at the same time also questions our whole belief system about what is masculinity. You know, why do we think that masculinity is like this big, beefy guy who, you know, is, you know, looking, I don't know, like some kind of ideal? You know, maybe those kind of guys are not so fantastic, and maybe they don't look like that, and maybe, in fact, the very guy that you think is a nobody might be, you know, more dangerous, in fact, often is more dangerous than the people that we set up to be these masculine ideals. I was really attracted also to the writing about the relationship between Becca and her husband, because it's very rare that in both TV and on film that we get to see the reality of a long marriage. You know, how hard it is to maintain intimacy across careers, and the humdrum, the repetition of life. How do we maintain real affection when our lives have become boring? This is the story of a family, normal street, normal house, normal people, which is revealed to be very different by this one single incident on a bus. A cruelty that we see all too often, but that ends up having a very different outcome than anyone would have expected. And that sets in motion a much greater disaster. But this disaster, at the same time, helps this family come to terms with who they really are. Bob is a really smart and kind person. He has just been so fun to be around with, and we've had a lot of really fun times doing all of these scenes together. And I don't know what else to say except, he's just super bright and super fun and a kind person.
When I first got this script, I'm an action fan lover. There's a lot of action written in the screenplay, as well as twists and turns of the sense of a character who just basically walked away from a dangerous life, a lot of bottled up energy. And then this bottled up energy is going to be released. I found that exciting. And then when I got to the character of Harry, I thought it'd be something fun for me to do. I think this team, Bob Odenkirk, Christopher Lloyd, the RZA, it's an unlikely team of guys who put together in an action film, but I think it's similar to the first guy who discovered that he could put cheese and pickle on a burger and it'll taste good, you know what I mean? Working with 8711, one of the best stunt teams in the business. So many great films they've been involved with, and I've watched their work and admired their work. I've been watching their work ever since The Raid. And getting the chance to work with that team, Greg and all the guys, was very comforting. They had a great previs of the action. They took the time to show me the moves, and from the first day I got on set, rehearse. And actually, I think I lost about 5 pounds and gained a couple of muscles working on this movie. Our director, Ilya, really has a knack for action films. He has a knack for punchlines within the action. And I was very pleased to work on this film, really to be at his service, I'm a fan of Hardcore Henry. And I'm glad that he's back on the scene, making these type of movies, and I'm looking forward to what he has next.
When I started reading it a little closer, on the second pass maybe, I realized that it really is a story about addiction. Now, it's very vague, and maybe I was grabbing at straws, but I remember talking to Bob and talking to Derek Kolstad, the writer, and I was like, guys, is it just me, or is this a story about a guy who has been 20 years clean, not a single violent act, he overcorrected, became this nobody because he thinks this is how people live, because he's never had a regular life until the age of 30-something. That got me very curious. It's about an unhappy man rediscovering and accepting himself in a much more violent form, who stops running and embraces his very dark self. He's an anti-hero, and it's always been a film to me about an anti-hero who, we're masquerading it as a dude who, it's a fantasy for the suburban dad. And for some people, they will only see that level of it, and they won't see the subtext, and that's fine. But everything that happens through the film, like I said earlier, is because Hutch makes the wrong choices. They're the right choices for him. They're the not right choices for his family, for his well-being, etc. You see, wonderful thing with Bob is that, apart from being a great actor and a great human being, and a writer, which is an odd, not an odd, but it's a rather a rare combination. But you point the camera at Bob, and you see that their gears turning. Whether they are or not, I don't know. But every single time we shot, a little bit of Bob goes a long way. So very lucky to be working with a guy like that. Daniel Bernhardt is the guy that trained Bob for 1.5 years. Daniel has been in an amazing number of movies, big and small, as lead, as stunt, as double, everything. This guy pushed Bob and taught Bob everything he knows for this movie. So it was amazing that we got Daniel to fly out and be that thug, because he can act. He's got the shorthand with Bob. When he tells Bob, this is great, it's working. It's probably stronger for an action scene. Not probably, it's stronger for Bob to hear it from Daniel, who's an expert, who's been doing this thing for 30 years. what I loved about what I saw is that this was not easy for him, not yet. And he was sweating, he was getting tired, but he was going at it. He was still persevering. He'd get up, he'd go again, and one more time, let's do it again. And he'd collapse, he'd go up, he'd get punched, and again. And there was something incredibly raw and real about what I was seeing. And I'm not exaggerating the slightest. It really was, I came out of that 8711 building going, I hope we get to make it, because this is, I would want to see this as an audience member first and foremost. Because the first thing you want to do if you're considering any project, whatever it is like, do I want to see it? Would I pay money to see it? Would I be excited to see it? And seeing Bob doing all these things, even though the script was great and I knew we were going to make that work, seeing Bob in action was just electric.
He lived for it. He loved the shooting and the killing and the danger and the risk and the intrigue and the adventure. He just loves it. But he's retired. He's in a retirement home. And he worries about his son. He's involved with something that's scaring him, the son, and is very dangerous. I'm just hoping he wants to use me again. Really, I mean, I just really like, I'm comfortable with him. I pick up so much from him. And he really knows what he's doing, technically. I mean, he's on it. Oh, they're great, you know, they're right on it. And I have my main battle tomorrow, and I'm pretty excited about it.
Futurepreviews.com. Whoa! Go behind the scenes of movies. Subscribe to Future Flicks YouTube channel.